Hi, my name is Dorothea Reynolds, and this is my therapy project plan for SLP 242. I would start off by saying, let's talk about comparing and contrasting. Does anybody know what these two words mean? I would then give the students a couple of seconds to think of a response, or maybe even raise their hand and give a suggestion and praise them if they do, and then discuss the definitions of each word. The definition of compare is to look for similarities or qualities that are the same between two or more objects or things. The definition of contrast is to look for differences or qualities that are not the same between two or more objects or things. Let's try an example together. How about a stapler and a paperclip? How can we compare these two? What is the same about them? I'm going to give an example and say that they both are used to hold papers together. I would then encourage the students to give their own examples. They could say something like, they are both school supplies, or I can buy them both at Target, or they can both be found on a teacher's desk. I would praise them for giving their suggestions and then move on to contrasting. Can we think of things or qualities of how these two are different? How are they not the same? I would again lead with my own example and say that staples aren't easily removed while paper clips are. I would again encourage the children to give their own suggestions. They could say something like, staples, you need the whole thing in order for it to work, where a paper clip's just a single thing. You just pop it on, that's it. Or staples hold papers better together. It's more secure that way, while a paper clip can easily fall off or wiggle around. Again, I would praise the children for giving their suggestions, and then we would practice another example. How about a ladybug and a butterfly? Let's talk about how they contrast. Can you think of any ways that they're different? While you're thinking, I'm going to give my example. I would say that a ladybug is small, while a butterfly is big. That's how they contrast. They're not the same size. I would then go around and ask each child in the small group to list a contrasting sentence. They might say that a ladybug eats aphids while a butterfly eats nectar, or a ladybug mostly uses its legs to get around while a butterfly chooses to fly more often. Or a ladybug is red and black or yellow and black, while a butterfly can be a whole range of different colors. I would praise them each for their suggestions again, and then say, let's talk about how a ladybug and a butterfly compare. How are they the same? What qualities are the same? I'll start again by saying ladybugs and butterflies are both insects. Then we would again take turns providing a comparison. The students might say, ladybugs and butterflies have wings, or ladybugs and butterflies both fly, or even that they both have exoskeletons. I would praise each student for a great response, or help support a student that might be struggling by asking questions or giving them hints to help them along. For example, I could say, think of their appearance. How do they compare or contrast that way? Or what do they eat? Do they eat the same thing, or do they eat different things? Questions like that or hints like that in order to elicit a comparing or contrasting quality. Finally, we'd finish with a small game. Let's play a comparing and contrasting game. I've printed off a selection of cards. Each card has two different objects on it with the name of the object written underneath. So this one says car and this one says taxi underneath. Here's how you play. I'm going to pass out 3 cards to each player. There is a pile off to the side to draw another from if you get stumped. On player 1's turn, so I'm going to be player 1 in this example, I'm going to put 1 card down in the middle and say 1 comparison sentence and 1 contrasting sentence about each of them. For instance, if I had this card with the helicopter on top and the airplane on the bottom, I might say that they are both models of transportation. That's my comparison between the two. My contrasting sentence is that helicopters have the propeller on top of the vehicle, while airplanes' propellers are on either side on the wings. And I would place it down on the table in front of me. The second player's job is to look at their deck of cards and find either a comparison or a contrast between one of the objects on the card on the table and one of the cards in their hands. For instance, if the second player had this card in their hand with the train and the bus, they might say that the school bus from the card and the airplane from the card that's already on the table both can carry a large amount of people. That's how they compare. So then I'd put the card down right next to the airplane, so I'd make a chain like this. They touch. But that's not the end of the second player's turn. It's also their job to think of another phrase, either comparison or contrast, depending on which one they haven't used already, in order to describe their card. So since I already compared the airplane and the school bus by saying that they both carry a large amount of people, I'm going to think of a contrasting sentence to talk about the school bus and the train. I might say that the train drives only on tracks, while the school bus can go on whatever road it wants. If a player can't think of another comparison or contrasting sentence to link more cards in the chain, they can then draw from the pile that's off to the side. They can draw one or more than one until they can find a comparing or contrasting sentence in order to link another card in the chain. The object of the game is to be the first player to lose all of the cards in your hand and to be the quickest with a comparison and contrasting sentences. So it doesn't benefit a player to keep pulling cards from the draw pile. So I would say don't do it unless you absolutely have to. When the game is finished, you should have a chain of cards on the table. The person with no more cards wins. So here I have another full set of food-related items that we would be playing with. While the small groups are playing, I will be moving around and providing hints or prompts to help if necessary, like what category does that object fall into, or how does it taste, is it salty, is it sweet, etc., in order to help prompt them, if necessary, of course. This game can be made more challenging by increasing the number of cards in a player's hand. So instead of starting with 3, they could start with 5 or 6 or up to any number. Or you can increase the number of objects on the card. So instead of starting with 2 that you would have to compare and contrast, I could require that they compare and contrast 3 or 4 items on the page before their turn is up. In addition, I could make the objects on the cards less easy to link. So instead of all food objects, maybe they could be a food object and a school supply, for instance. In order to make it easier, I could involve myself in each game, take a turn, and then sit there and provide the hints and prompts that I have suggested earlier in order to help each player along. And that's the end of the game. Thank you.